So this video, I'm actually carving my knife. I know it's been like 2-3 months since I released the video about the whittling kit that I bought, and I just never I never actually finished the video. Well, I never made the follow-up of actually carving out the knife. That's what we're doing in this video. And if you look at it, yes, I know it's not colored correctly, it's not wood, but we'll talk about that at the end. So let's get into carving down my knife, doing my first whittling. Alright, so I've unboxed the gloves, I've unboxed the wood, I've unboxed the knives, I've printed off some of the starter projects that they suggest, and now I have to get to work on it. While we do this, I know I'm using a weird camera up here, if this is even on. Well, it's on. I don't know how it looks. I'm using a GoPro up here just to see how it looks. Normally I use an iPhone, but I'm trying to GoPro on 4K. Let's see. So, first things first, while I shake scissors in your face, I need to cut this out. Then I need to glue it to the block. I've got it glued on there. Just needed to, I just need to make sure it stays in the position it's in, and I'm gonna mark off what I need to cut out. And yeah, we got all that down there to carve out. I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit. I'm gonna switch cameras around, check how this looks, and we'll go from there. At this point, it's been about 24 hours. The glue has set between the pattern and the wood, and now I'm going to start roughing it out. This is just to get the basic shape of the knife correct-ish. So all I'm really going to do is get it for the pattern where I scratched all the areas with the pencil, or I made all the pencil marks. I'm going to get rid of all of that and just have the basic shape of the knife. No details, just the shape. I am starting with the back of the blade because it's the least amount of area that I have to actually take off. So I want to get that done right away. And that's how they do it in the tutorial stuff. So we're starting there. After that, I'm going to the back of the handle. But before I get to the back of the handle, I make kind of a dumb decision. A little bit. I wouldn't say it's a horrible decision completely, but it is a dumb decision. And that is using the hobby saw that I got from Real Terrain Hobbies blacksmithing kit to go and cut off the excess at the bottom. So on the pattern, it doesn't fit the whole block, and I just wanted to cut off like the bottom of the handle basically. It kind of worked and kind of didn't. There were problems. Let's just say that. There were problems. Here is some of the struggle that I had during this. So looking back on this 3-4 months later now, I really could handle this better. Instead of, cutting off that bottom part, because I'm really struggling with doing that with the hobby saw. Probably just because of my own incompetence. But I could have, just kind of followed that curve a little bit and extended out my handle on the knife. And it probably would have worked out better to just carve it down that way. But, I really wanted to follow the pattern, so we're cutting it out. And it's not working well. Once I got done using the hobby saw and the whittling knives together to, get that part off, then I carved out the back of the handle. After that, I went and started on the front of the blade. I didn't use the hobby saw this time to take off that extra area. I actually just used the whittling knives to take it all off. And doing it that way was just a lot easier. So next project with whittling, I will probably just use the knives and not, grab the hobby saws and use those. Maybe I'll use a different blade also, who knows. So once I got the blade done and kind of got the cross guard set for how I want it to be or where I want it to be, I then started on what I consider the most complex area because it has the multiple curves for the fingers, and that's the front of the handle. And carving that out was a little bit tough. Like it honestly was the toughest area for this section because it just it trying to get the knife in there and carve it out and not go too deep was just, it was hard. It was fun, but it was hard. So that was probably the worst part, at least for that section. The hardest part in general of this whole first time whittling, doing the knife stuff, learning through kind of tutorials a little bit, is trying to discern Beavercraft's book that gives you, measurements and stuff of how you're supposed to do this. Because here's the thing. So for step 5, when you start marking, this is what it tells you. For the handle measurements, handle, where you hold the knife, measure and mark 2 points on the side for the handle, each at 7/16 from the edge. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So your handle is maybe 1/8 of an inch. If that ain't quite right. Then number 6 is for the blade measurements. On the blade side, make 2 marks, each at 1/8. These marks will guide the blade's creation. That is a thick-ass blade. You're not going and, just eyeballing it down the middle and then going from making a line there and doing 1/8 either side. No, this is 1/8 from the edge. The shit don't make sense. Beavercraft needs to go back and they need to go and fix this. Honestly. I know, war going on, all of that. They're from Ukraine. I know. I'm just saying, the measurements need to be changed a little bit because you're doing it backwards. It should be, the handle measurement should be the 1/8 and the blade should be the 7/16. Or it made more sense when watching the tutorial that they include for videos, but from the book, it ain't making sense. Once I get done with all of that marking malarkey, I carve everything down to the final widest dimensions. So for the knife blade, that is the 2 outside lines on either side, which will be basically the width of the spine at the back of the knife. The third line, the middle line there, is for the edge of the blade of how much I'm going to dig down the bevel to. Once I'm done with going to the full fat thickness of the blade, I then start working on the handle. And my goal with the handle is to keep it kind of large. Like, I'm not going to take down the shape too much, but what I am going to do is I am going to round out a lot of it. So I want to round out all of the like sharp edges on the back and on the bottom and for where like your fingers would be. I want to get everything rounded so it feels good in the hand, while I also kind of like thin it out just a little bit to make it fit with the rest of the knife. Once I've got a lot of the handle like sufficiently rounded and kind of to the basic shape that I want it to be, all the corners are knocked down, like everything is to the thickness I want it to be, and just like the basic shape of the knife is there. Then I grab some sandpaper and I try to, you know, kind of just smooth out all of the faces and surfaces a little bit. And I think it worked out well. The sanding step, I actually probably could have waited for a little bit because I still needed to do like the bevel on the blade for both sides and get it down to, you know, the thickness it's supposed to be at. So I may have jumped the gun a little bit early with doing all the sanding. But once I got done with like this first round of sanding, then I marked out the blade, like where the edge would be and where the bevel would start, and then started to carve that out. And it was really just a matter of taking like bits at a time, like chunks at a time, and just kind of, you know, going back and forth to either side, taking out, getting it closer and closer to being like a sharp edge. And this like kind of fine detail work is probably the hardest part of this, I think. Because I don't want to go, you know, too deep with each cut, because then I have to go like as deep on the other side. And it's just, it is a little hard trying to get that kind of, I wouldn't say precision, because it isn't super precise, but you're trying to keep the edge of the blade in the center. And you have to go back and forth to either side to get it, you know, to kind of keep it straight, which I think it worked out, kinda. There is a little bit of like a bend in where my center line is, where the edge of the blade would be, but I think mostly it worked out. Once I got the bevel done, I wanted to do a little bit more with like the hilt of the knife, for like the pommel area of the knife and the guard, which the guard was probably the hardest part actually, because I'm not very good at doing, you know, straight cuts. But once I got like all that done, I went and I sanded the blade again. I went back and forth between like sanding and doing a little bit of carving and then sanding and then carving and just trying to keep it all straight and like in line and get everything kind of smoothed out and to the point that I really liked where it was at. So you're not going to get like really good shots of what the knife looks like because I can't do that right now. And I think this video is already getting long enough, so I'm not going to show you my process of trying to learn how to do non-metallic metals on this knife. That will be another video. Not the next video, but probably the one after that. No, not the one after that, but the one after that. I swear I'm going to have this video, I'm going to have that video done by like mid-January. That's the goal at least. But yeah. So carving out the knife, I think it's a fun process. I think whittling is a fun process, and I want to do more of it. And I want to make more videos on whittling and other types of hobbies that I find interesting. If you want to see somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing with whittling, try some projects, stick around. Because I want to do whittling, I want to do woodworking, I want to do miniatures, I want to do dioramas. There's a lot of stuff I want to do for the next year, and it's going to get interesting. But that is all I got. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did like the video, please hit that like button, hit subscribe. It does help the channel out. And leave a comment of what you think of this video and what you think of my knife. So that's it. Hope you have a royal day or night, whatever it is for you, and I will talk to you later.